This second session will start with the title Institutional Autonomy and Accountability. And the two speakers we have for that are Dr. Wan Manan and Professor Koon. Let me first read this short description of Wan Manan. Manan is currently a professor of nutrition and public health in Alma Ata University in Jakarta, Indonesia. He was formerly a professor at the University Science Malaysia and visiting professor at Kyoto University in Japan. And everyone knows Manan as an academic activist, which he has been for the last 40 years, and he's currently an executive member of the Garak movement. Manan was also the president of the Academic Staff Association at USM and previously a chairperson of Garak. Professor Koon, also a member of Garak, is professor in criminology and sociology at the National Defense University of Malaysia. She wanted to keep her bio very short and crisp, and I hope it is short enough. So I will now let Manan take the mic and deliver his speech. There's one more.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manan. The title of my presentation is Current Threat to University Autonomy. So this is the sort of the long definition of by the Bologna Secretariat, So university autonomy is required for every university to function properly. So without autonomy, you are just a university which is entrapped with your own things, So, but let me go to a more easier to understand kind of. This is a Magna Charta Universitatum 1988, which 10 years later formed the Bologna process. So it says that university is an autonomous institution at the heart of societies. So we have to remember that. And so to meet the needs of the world around it, you have to do research, teaching, and also, of course, you have to be independent from all political and authority and autonomy power, economic power. Of course, you have to be independent from your own government. This is what we in Malaysia. This is a lot of been misinterpreted, I think, regarding autonomy. And there is also the famous one, the Lima Declaration of Academic Freedom and Autonomy of Institutions of Higher Learning. This declaration was done in Peru, Lima, Peru in 1988. Right after, a few months after that, the coordinator of the conference came to our university. I was at the ESCO of the Association of Academic Staff in USM in early 1989, and he described the whole thing. So we use this a lot in our discussion regarding university autonomy and academic freedom. And I'm going to spend more on what are the current threats of autonomy, because I think I will not explain anymore about autonomy, because those are the things. So I think the current threats which we, whether we are conscious or not, or whether we are following or we are yielding to the threats, The first one is the neoliberalism agenda. The second is new managerialism. Then I call it the third one, internal threats and external threats. But I will focus on the first two up there first. Okay. This is the assumption here is that the market controls citizens under neoliberalism. So in this case, for example, here, commodification of higher education as a commodity, you see that, and introduction of market type mechanism and competition, focus on importance of international rankings. These are right deep in our university right now. And you have increased specification by management of workloads, programs, academic structures, and so on, the so-called KPIs. And you have a shift now from a collegial or democratic governance in a flat structure, which we normally do, and to a hierarchical models based on dictated of management and specification of job performance. Because I can see the transformation over the last 40 years, how we used to be in there is a lot of collegial discussion. Now, everyone shut their door and sit in their room and trying to finish some assignment or, getting your paper published or so on. So the focus now is on individual responsibility for failure or owning the success. This is what we call you are proposing the I factor, possessing the I factor, but if failure is you, it's not the institution, it's not the structure of this institution. So the neoliberal impact on culture of education. So in adopting, for example, this business model of university, colleges and commercial values on the system and process is by default, not by design. Or by design, if not by design. I can't seem to see my own slide somewhere here. Okay, for example, students and academic idealism to work in the public interest is diminished, I think, or in some place there are, but in our university, it's sort of diminished. And what is the situation now I can describe is what George Monbiot put it nicely here. Inequality is recast as virtuous now, and a reward for utility and generator of wealth. Effort to create a more equal society are both counterproductive and morally corrosive. If you see how universities run now, this is what sort of described, And this form of new managerialism. Ginsberg wrote a book about a couple of years back on the fall of the faculty. He thought about how, the managers, the administrators within the Johns Hopkins University came up and to be controlling the university instead of the academic, the researchers and the students. And this new managerialism is a mode of governance aligned to neoliberalism also. It involves governing through enacting technical changes imbued with market values. So it is not a neutral management strategy, it is a political project heralding a new mode of governance that provides a unique type of moral education for businesses and organization model on businesses. However, there was a study by Kolsaker, in English universities that show that academics are reasonably comfortable working within a managerialist regime, and that they are instrumental in sustaining them. This is what I might call the internal threat. You are complicit of the system because you are subservient, you are obedient, and as opposed to, for example, civil disobedient and academic disobedient, which is the hallmark of the 1960s and 70s, which later on changed the global landscape of education worldwide, which leads to democratization of higher education also. But with the current situation, I don't know where we are leading. And these are characteristics of, if you want to know, of how a university turning into a corporation. First, you can see that, now you have new executive positions in the universities. Some vice-chancellor are calling themselves CEO, Chief Educational Officer, instead of a university director, because, head appointments are, there are a lot of appointments and less election. For example, the dean you appoint them, either the minister appoint them or somebody, but it's no more the democratic decision making within the university are less now, I know under the ACTA University, University College S, it allow you to do some election kind of, decisions and policies are done by the universities. I think as less democratic decision making also, and there are a lot of regulatory frameworks that you have to follow, whether it comes from the MQA or from the Ministry of Higher Education, guidelines that you have to follow. And if you have problems, you have a lot of quick fixes here. We are having problem this year because you cannot quick fix the pandemic or the COVID-19 crisis, and that's why the whole place, universities and Ministry of Higher Education is haywire regarding how to deal with the situation. That shows if you cannot deal with the situation, what the type of leadership we have at Ministry of Higher Education and at our universities. I mean, if we are really good university, world class or whatever, I'm sure we know how to deal with it. Even in student enrollment and all these things now is still not clear here nor there. Each university making their own decision, but it's not, everything is not all right now. And of course, this is changing to the top of the world. University ranking. A good university or a world-class university ought to perform highly influential research, embody a culture of excellence, have advanced facilities, and carry the brand name, tersohor, that transcend national borders, whether you are whatever, what group of Ivy Leagues or top 10 or whatever. And then also international university rankings are fixated on narrow band of data and prestige scores. Citation indexes are biased toward the sciences and engineering, and furthermore biased in their focus of peer-reviewed journals published in English and mostly in English. And also the number, some of these ranking agency also have something that it's very difficult for you to achieve. For example, depend on the number of Nobel laureates you have in your university and other markers of academic status. And it's all tilted towards the older universities. So you cannot just jump the gun. You cannot. One thing is that you cannot corrupt or bribe them to go up there, it's not easy. But of course, there are some agencies where you can pay them hundreds or thousands or millions to get yourself counted there at the bottom somewhere there. And no doubt that some of these indicators are useful and informative. I'm not denying that, for supplying like global comparative measure of productivity and status. However, university leaders and higher education ministry are placing too much faith in this paradigm that is not achievable. It's very hard to achieve anyway. I can show you here, for example, here. These are the one of the famous ranking, the academic ranking of world universities. You can see there from number 1 to, for example, the top 10 here are all the same university that have been there for the last 100 years. Because I know in 1915 there was a university ranking in the US also. It's the same university there, except for Oxford and Cambridge, but they were there also. They were at the top. So I mean, we cannot be dreaming and going after this chasing this ranking business and spending so much money about. And I'm very sad to hear, for example, like right now we are having a crisis and COVID-19 crisis, and the people in the university now are demanding the university to pay them like 12,000, 8,000 just to publish a paper in some MTPI or in some Nature Springer or in BMC. And right now, at the moment, you can see I hear here and there, instead of make a moratorium for like 1 month or for 6 months, let that 100 or 1,000 of money go and help somebody else outside rather than getting for me to get another extra publication. But I mean, this is pathetic. This is where our university rank in that university ranking of world-class university is somewhere like 300 to 400 or 500 to 600. I mean, we have to write up this one if you really, I mean, there are other cheaper ranking that you can pay. And okay, how to overcome all this problem? I mean, these are some suggestions that I pick up from the UNESCO. What you do is to increase autonomy, even though you already have autonomy, as our AXA University and College University say, we were given autonomy, but there are more autonomy are needed, I think. Change, for example, you have to change what Mr. Manan and Chanda did this morning, for example. We have to change legal status of higher education as vehicle for increased autonomy and more autonomy in resource management, more autonomy in development and academic programs, and increased autonomy requires strong leadership, for example. And strong leadership in a right direction to be effective. And it has to be remembered that increased autonomy should be considered as a means to higher education system improvement within the context of a broader reform agenda and not an aim in itself. And there is some alternative to the problem that we're having right now. For example, this is really, there was a big discussion in South Africa regarding what we call forwarding this idea of the new flagship university. This new flagship university, for example, I just give you an example. These are a comprehensive institution, a comprehensive university. In terms of research, it's research intensive, it's focused on regional and national relevancy. I mean, that word relevancy to your national, to your nation. And then second is broadly accessible. Even though you are a world-class university, it must be, you are also selective in your admission of undergraduate and postgraduate. And yet you are also broadly accessible to representative groups of people in your demography. For example, the minority, the handicapped, and all these people should be able to. And flagship university are also have commitment to promote socio-economic mobility and reduce inequality in societies they serve. They are in line, for example, with SDGs. But the neoliberal agenda and all this ranking is opposite SDGs. But I don't know what some university having both. They have this SDG and spend so much money on ranking and calling themselves SDG compliant. It is not. I mean, you have to go, for example, reduce inequality, for example, leave no one behind. And highly autonomous. These institutions are sufficiently autonomous and publicly financed, and so that they become leaders of knowledge generation and thought, and not just followers as most of our university right now. And I mean, you have to be leaders also in your own country. Perhaps other countries might imitate you or follow you also. And you have a management capacity also. These institutions have internal culture, self-governance, dynamic self-governance. And you have economic engagement also. These universities are broadly engaged in regional and national economic development and public service across all disciplines within the university, with participation, for example, from faculty, students, staff, and you receive organizational support from your organization. And lastly, it is leaders in a larger education system. These universities, I mean, the flagship universities, have self-identity as part of a larger system of national and regional education. So if you want to be a national hub, or international hub for higher education, I mean, we can go through this some of these flagship university instead of matching and trying to compete with Harvard or Oxford. I mean, we have our own needs. And in conclusion, I took from Theodore Adorno, who aptly wrote in his Minima Moralia, Reflection of Damaged Life. what he says there, I mean, reflect what it is now, you know. It was written in 1951. The entire private domain is being engulfed by mysterious activities that bears all the features of commercial life without there being any actual business to transact. The whole society is becoming hierarchical, proliferating wherever there used to be an appearance of freedom expressed in the parasitic psychology of the individual, the uncouth interloper seen as arrogant, alien, and improper. And we have so many interlopers into our universities right now, whether they are in the board of directors, whether they are, you know, politicians or somebody, you know. I mean, that is a description. And another conclusion I can say is that the notion of universities are vibrant places of social critique and debate has been supplanted with places that are responsive to knowledge economy and warehouse of educational commodities now. And lastly, academics who are seemingly doing all the right things in terms of bringing in research grants are prolific in terms of research publication, are skillful in securing partnerships with industry, and are able to attract, just a minute. And able to attract bright students, bright research students in the process of elevating your university ranking in the status in the ranking are now the academic rock stars. So we have a lot of people trying to be academic rock stars nowadays. It's just like an industry now. And but finally, you know, in reality, we are just a tribe of muzzled academics, you know. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, so I now welcome Professor Tay to the screen, and she will deliver her presentation.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody had a good lunch. Now, look at, actually a lot of things have been said this morning and by Prof Manan, but I just want to go into the more towards the AUKU. You see, the main figures in the public university, we practice hierarchy system, as Prof Manan had said. Okay, it's like a pyramid system. Okay, but you look at authorities in AUKU. Authorities in AUKU are the board, the Senate, management committee, faculties, etc. Never have they mentioned that the committee, the authorities are the dean, the vice-chancellor, the deputy vice-chancellor, and so on. It's all about faculties, Senate, management committees, and so on. These are our authorities. Now, what does that mean by that? Okay, you see the authority, you have a leader in the authority who's actually chairman. And this chairman, okay, he has only one, he's like everybody else, have a vote, one vote, okay, in any meetings, okay, if you have to vote, everybody has one vote. However, the chairman has one extra vote if in the event of an equality of votes, he has one extra casting vote. That is all the chairman of the authority has. Okay, he cannot make decision on his own. Okay, so basically, you know, the authorities in the university is actually all the groupings. Okay, now in the event of there is a dispute between the authorities or between an officer and authority, the minister may come in and determine the dispute himself or herself and appoint a dispute or even appoint a dispute resolution panel to determine the dispute. Okay, now in this panel, the minister can actually appoint distinguished persons from within or outside the university. But I would suggest having somebody from outside rather than within, because if you have somebody within, you know, you may not get the fair evaluation. But basically, if you look at the authority in AUKU, we are actually a committee of scholars practicing collegiate system. Okay, we are not meant to be a hierarchy system. Okay, now in this hierarchy system that we are practicing now, who monitors? Okay, the main figures in the hierarchical system. Okay, the minister has very wide powers, but who dares to contradict the minister? Many of the academics also have vested interest and hoping for something from the minister. So they will not want to contradict the minister. So who actually can stand up? Actually, it's the academic associations as well as the Rakyat. Like Gerak, what is Gerak doing now is Gerak and his members are bringing 3 judicial review against the minister. Okay, I mean, please follow these cases because they are going to be test cases. Now, the board of directors are appointed by the minister for a period of 3 years. Now, the role of the board of directors is that they're supposed to be governing, policy making, and monitoring body. They're supposed to ensure the implementation of universities' constitution, laws, and policies, and to ensure that every authority, committee officer, or committee keeps within its power or its powers and terms of reference. Okay, many board members are not trained as academics. Example, they are corporate figures. Do they understand how the academia works? Could they carry out their tasks as specified by AUKU efficiently and effectively? I want to be asking questions. You all think about it. Now, what about the Vice-Chancellor? The Vice-Chancellor should be appointed by the minister on the advice of the committee, the selection committee, after consultation with the board. Are the board members the right people for the minister to consult? After what I've told you, most of them are actually, in the corporate world. And the Vice-Chancellor shall act under the general authority and direction of the board and the Senate. Again, could the board advise the VC? If you have the wrong leadership, you will have an unsatisfactory university. Now, deputy vice-chancellors, they are appointed by the minister after consultation of vice-chancellor. Is it good to be, with consultation of vice-chancellor, or should we also have an independent selection committee? What happened if the vice-chancellor only chose his own cronies and not the best? What about the registrar, bursar, chief librarian, and legal advisor? If you look at the AUKU, the registrar, the bursar, and chief librarian, and legal officer or advisor, they should be selected by the selection committees. But has there ever been selection committees for these posts? Not that I know of, after so many years in academia. And anyway, all these people, they should be only appointed for a period of 3 years. But we have seen, registrars being appointed longer than that, or else, they are like, it's a life sort of appointment. Okay. Many universities don't practice this 3-year rule. Okay. Now, the appointment of these people may at any time be revoked by the board, stating the reason for such revocation. And all these people, registrar, bursar, etc., they are only ex-officio members, but shall not be entitled to vote, okay, at the Senate. But over the years, the registrar, the bursar, and so on have become rather powerful. Some can even decide on who to appoint, who to be confirmed in this post, who to be promoted. In actual fact, they are just administrators. How did they become so powerful? I think it's best to rotate them every 3 years. This also prevents competition among the assistant registrars. There's so much infighting going on among them. What about the dean and deputy deans? The vice-chancellor shall, after consultation with the academic staff, appoint a dean and also the deputy dean. And the dean shall be chairman of the faculty. But what happened is that nowadays the dean act, higher than that. They act as if they're so powerful, they can dictate to the faculty. And moreover, the consultation part, mostly there's no consultation. The vice-chancellor don't really consult with the academic staff of who to appoint as dean. Nowadays, they're very popular of using online voting, but online voting is not consultation. And most of the time, we have our doubts concerning online votings. We don't really know whether the person appointed truly gets the vote. Now, the dean and deputy deans, notwithstanding, okay, the vice-chancellor may, if he deemed fit, revoke any appointment, okay, anytime. But of course, he must give good reasons. Now, for department heads, it's the same. They are chairperson to the department. Okay, they are also appointed by the vice-chancellor with the consultation of the deans. Now, issues to note for academics. This is very important, okay, for all academics, especially junior academics. Decisions made at department and faculty concerning academic matters should be collective. No head of department or dean can make their own decision concerning academic matters. Now, nowadays, what we do is we allow the deans to make the decision, and then after that, it's binding to the whole faculty. That is wrong, because whatever decision the dean make, it has to go through faculty or department meetings. Okay, usually it's the department. If the department make a decision, it's binding on even the faculty. Okay, the department has the last say actually. Okay, unless of course that we contravene the laws in some way or another. Okay, don't forget that the heads of departments and also the deans, they're actually chairman of the department or faculty. Yeah, they are not the authority. Okay, now nowadays the dean always say, oh, this decision is made by jawatan kuasa or committees. Who appointed the committee members? We don't know. It's also the dean who appointed the committee members. We have no say in who is the committee. Sometimes you don't even know who is the committee, who makes the decision. Okay, and then at the end they say, oh, jawatan kuasa make the decision, is binding. Okay, employment of academics, extension of contracts, everything should go through proper department meetings. Okay, if it has not gone through proper department meetings, the head of department cannot make his or her own decision. And this is one thing I always tell the juniors, please check your marks for your penilaian prestasi tahunan or yearly appraisal. A lot of them don't check. And then when suddenly they found out that, they want to go for the promotion or they have a pay increment, they cannot get it because, their appraisal marks is less than 80%. Okay, then it's too late, Okay, now, for the yearly appraisal form, I'm going to read this because I got it from JPA. Ya. Prinsip asas dan tujuan utama sistem penilaian prestasi. Penilaian hendaklah dilaksanakan secara objektif, adil dan telus untuk meningkatkan quality dan productivity. It's not supposed to victimize it. It's supposed to help promote quality and productivity of the staff. And all of the penilai must see you first and discuss with you your prestasi sebelum menandatangani di ruangan bahagian 8. Okay, please note that they must see you, they must talk to you, before, and then they discuss the marks with you before they sign. This is very important, which a lot of people don't know. Okay, and then when they found out that they cannot go for their promotion and so on, it's too late because the marks has gone through the process. Okay. And I found that there are some deans who actually victimize the staff. They don't like the staff, they mark them down. That is not in the spirit of the LPPT, okay? JPA doesn't mean it that way. JPA means that it's supposed to, promote you, okay? Not to victimize you. What about assistant registrar, okay? Who checks the performance of the assistant registrar? Who should be advising the dean, deputy deans, and the department heads? Will the assistant registrar be brave enough to stand up against the dean for his abuses, especially if the dean's grade is higher? Okay, I have ever heard assistant registrar say, who am I compared to the dean? Now, if the assistant registrar is going to behave that way, how can he advise the dean? Okay, senior lecturers are usually professors and associate professors. Who checks on them? Who checks on their quality of teaching, supervision, and publications? Okay, what happens if the senior lecturers are being discriminated and victimized? Who stand up for them? Who have been discriminated and victimized based on race, religion, gender, etc. Who stands up for academics who stand up for quality? I'm quoting Mr. Manan. Okay. For example, if a professor found a student plagiarizing, but the dean still passed the student and later discriminate and victimize the professor for voicing this out. Okay, who stands up for the professor? Who stands up for quality? What if there is a cover up by the whole university on such a case? The VC, the dean, the head of departments are all into covering up this plagiarism case. Okay, and then moreover, when something like that happens, okay, the colleagues also may want to avoid the professor. So who stands up for the professor? It is a very lonely path to take to whistleblowing. Now, who checks on the junior lecturers? Again, quality of teaching, supervision, publication, and also discrimination. Who stands up for academics who have been discriminated and victimized based on race, religion, gender, etc.? Okay. For example, there are cases where junior female lecturers were being sexually harassed, but the university covers up this wrongdoing. The junior lecturer has also made police reports, but end up going nowhere except the junior lecturer was victimized and sent to another department. So who stands up for these junior lecturers? Who stand up for academics who stand up for quality? What if there is a cover-up by the whole university? As for students, who checks on the quality of the works of students? Who checks on the students who have been discriminated and victimized? For example, sexual harassment. Who stands up for students? It has happened, but students dare not complain for fear of being failed by the harasser. Okay. Now, Consumer Protection Act 1999. Okay. Is the university fit for the purpose and of such nature and quality that it can reasonably be expected to achieve the result? Is the university providing quality education to the students as consumers? This part I was quoting Mr. Manan. Mr. Manan was talking about it the other day. Yeah? Okay, now, as the committee earlier on was telling us about the higher education ombudsman, perhaps this is one way out. The role of the ombudsman is to hear grievances and complaints from institutions, staff, students, and public on matters concerning the management of the institution and the delivery of higher education in those institutions. Perhaps this is one way we can deal with all the problems. Now, what about the Senate? The Senate is supposed to look after the quality. What happened? In AUKU, the Senate shall be the academic body. They shall have the control and general direction of instruction, research, and examination, award of degrees, diplomas, certificates, and other academic distinctions. Now, look at this. There are more than that the Senate can do. To ensure education standards in the courses of study provided by or from university, to draft policies for protection of academic freedom and professional excellence. Now, if the Senate has been doing its job properly, we will not be seeing the decline of quality in our local universities. Unfortunately, I must say the Senate has not been doing their job. Senate members are also made up of academics, and many of these academics have vested interests and they may not want to stand up against wrongdoings. As I said, it's a very lonely path to take to whistleblow. What about Malaysian qualification agencies? We were talking about it. They have the COPA and the COPIA, and whatever, so many names. However, MQA does not check on the quality of academics or students, but provide guidelines for departments and faculties to monitor them. Now, if the departments and faculties are going to monitor their own staff, there is no independent evaluation. I must say, in my junior days, we actually have professors from other universities, or even from overseas coming to sit in our classes and vet our quality. But unfortunately, it's not done these days. Now, coming back to institutional autonomy, like what Prof. Manan was saying just now, autonomy is the degree of self-governance according to UNESCO. Okay, and autonomy is also institutional form of academic freedom. Are our public universities ready for institutional autonomy after what are presented earlier on with all the wrongdoings and abuses and not following AUKU? If we cannot even follow the AUKU properly, do you think that our public universities are ready for institutional autonomy? I'm going to leave the question to you to answer, for you to think about. Okay, thank you. That's my presentation.